everyone. Welcome to Loro and Friends Inside the NFL. My name is LoroAntonio. With me today is Ben Kearse. And before we get started, tomorrow we are launching our baseball off-season show called Hot Stove. That will be tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. And on March 30th, 2022, we are launching our Baseball Tonight program beginning on March 30th when the 2022 Major League Baseball season is in full swing. So we wanted to get that out there, folks. So, Ben, how are you doing?
Doing good, Loro. How are you?
Doing well. Looking forward to tomorrow's show. But first things first, we got football to talk about first. So let's start talking about with the Patriots and Panthers. So I'll tell you what, the Patriots held the Panthers to only 6 points. But on the Panthers side of things, unfortunately, we received news that Sam Darnold is going to be out for a while as he has a shoulder injury. And for the Patriots, Mac Jones continues to get better, but the Patriots defense is starting to trend upward.
Yeah, I mean, like I talked on Sunday night with you in terms of the Patriots. It's another stepping stone for another win. This team about a month ago looked like it was dead in terms of trying to finish games off well and find out ways to win. And they're 1-3, and things definitely changed since then. Record itself, they haven't faced necessarily great teams. I mean, yeah, the Chargers are pretty good, so that was a good win. Panthers are kind of a mediocre type team. The Jets, but if you 3-game winning streaks, a 3-game winning streak at the end of the day, and Patriots have been fantastic on the road. I think it's great. They have to get better at home. Obviously, they only had one win, and that was the Jets. We'll talk about the Browns game later in the program, and that's a home game, so it's a huge game coming up, and obviously COVID situation going on with the Browns too that we will get into as well. That includes some big time names offensively for the Browns, so we'll talk about that. But in this game, Sam Darnold, like Loro, you said, Sam Darnold is going to be out for the next couple of weeks. Maybe there was potential chance he shouldn't even play in this game because, leading up to the game week, there was a lot of reports out there that PJ Walker, their backup, would start, and Matt Rule said as long as Sam Darnold was healthy enough to go, he'd go out there and go out and play well. And Sam Darnold kind of did the same kind of situation, throwing interceptions like crazy to the Patriots this couple of years ago with the Jets. And, Sam basically, the Patriots do a good job on him, at least in the last couple of matchups with him and doing man-to-man and confusing him with matchups. There's a couple plays. 2 of the interceptions that he threw were rollouts. And the Patriots kind of had the lead. I think it was 21-6. And it looks like the Panthers are kind of driving here on some possessions here and there. And then Sam Darnold threw that. Really, that was kind of the, any hopeful type of potential, any type of comeback for the Panthers side was the interception return by J.C. Jackson. Big turnaround of events there to make that game at the time 21-6. It was 14-6 in the second quarter. Hunter Henry got a touchdown catch. I believe that's his 5th now. He's been doing great, at least trying to find the back of the end zone. And then in the third quarter, Nick Folk kicked a 37-yard field goal, but that was it. No scores in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. The Patriots with a convincing win. Now they were 5-4. Now they are in, as of now, the playoffs. Things obviously could change, as we saw a lot this weekend with a lot of the good teams losing to some bad teams. But they're obviously playing hard. Like you said, defensively, they've been playing awesome. Christian McCaffrey came back, and that's obviously one of the best backs in the league. And, I know McCaffrey came back from injury, so he obviously wasn't 100%, but, it's still one of the best backs in the league, and the Patriots defense did great. They've been a lot better against the run in the last couple of weeks, which has been fantastic. That really makes a way in terms of keeping teams to one-dimensional in terms of offensively. And the pass defense, which I think kind of earlier on in the season was a little bit shaky, I think it's really definitely honed down. Now we'll kind of see in the next couple of weeks when you have kind of better quarterbacks coming up. But it's definitely good. It's definitely good to see, Loro, that they've been finding ways to win. Now, the only thing that I do worry about is I know you said Mac Jones, is definitely progressing, but the last couple of weeks here he hasn't been at his best. They still have been finding ways to win at his best, but if you want to obviously beat the better teams, kind of the elite type teams, which I wouldn't really say there's elite teams, but obviously that strip sack that he had, and then the turnover, the interception was for sure a force to Stephon Gilmore, a former Patriot. He has to do what he can to be a little more turnover less free in terms of some games. There has been some times where he hasn't thrown a turnover, but he's gotten away with some things. Not saying it's a bad thing, but just a little bit of cause of concern for Mac Jones lately. And they have a big game coming up with the Browns, who are potentially not going to be likely out with some of their best players on the offensive side. We'll get into that in a bit, but for now, good win for the Patriots. I'll take it. And obviously you move on, and now you're only a half game back in the division with Buffalo. When we said a month ago, would the Patriots even make the playoffs? Would they be within a chance by mid part of the season? And now it's almost week 10, and they're potentially in a spot now. So we'll see how things are, but obviously things have been trending upward a lot better than they had than a couple weeks ago, more like a month earlier in the season. So good thing for the Patriots. They're 4-1 in the conference, so for sure things have looked much better than they did in the past.
Yes, they've looked so much better in the past, but now we get to our players of the game here. So let's start with my offensive player of the game for the New England Patriots. I'm going to go with Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry got one of the touchdowns in this win, and I thought that Mac Jones, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Brandon Bolden all played well, but Stevenson and Harris are in concussion protocol, but expect them to be out there on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Well, we're going to get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple of players of the game for me. I think more on the defensive side. Offensively, I guess you could say Ramondre Stevenson before he got hurt. He was really playing hard. He had 2 receptions for long chunks of gain, I think for 41 yards. Damian Harris did have a touchdown run himself, but only had 30 yards on the ground game. But yeah, Ramondre Stevenson, I think, was my standout offensively. But defensively, Matt Judon continues to carry this defense a lot in these games. Has been great. Been definitely a just a home run acquisition this offseason from Bill Belichick and his crew. Carl Davis and Lawrence Guy, they played a lot of the front. So I got to give a lot of credit to the big boys up from the defensive line. They were outstanding. And then in the secondary, I thought Jalen Mills was okay. He had a big pass breakup at the end. Game was kind of out of reach, but he made a big play. J.C. Jackson, of course, was really my big player of the game with 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. So a lot of guys on the defense. Jamie Collins with a really incredible interception as well. He's obviously kind of butting back into, I'm not saying his pre-days of the Patriots, but of course it's good to see that he's coming into his own. And Christian Barmore, one of the young rookies from Alabama, it continues to be a force, and just a lot of good things from this defense. Obviously now if you get offensive production week by week, if this defense could be what they've been doing every single week, this team will just get better and better.
Yes, this defense will continue to get better. So my offensive player of the game is Hunter Henry, and my defensive player of the game is J.C. Jackson. Had a pick 6 in this game. Jamie Collins played well, but I'm giving it to J.C. Jackson because he made the big play of the game against Carolina. And then my special teams player of the game, Nick Folk, continues to produce and kick really good field goals for us. But tell me again who your defensive player and offensive player of the games were for this game in particular.
Yeah, so I would say Ramondre Stevenson for sure is my offensive player of the week. Game. Defensive player, I can go a couple ways. I can go with Matt Judon, but I kind of had him the last couple weeks here. J.C. Jackson had 2 interceptions, including pick 6, so that was big. Sue's obviously in my top, and Christian Barmore had a big game as well. But you can really go with a lot of that defensive line. Davon Godchak definitely has lost some playing time to Carl Davis, definitely up front. Listened to some Boston media today from reporters, and they like Carl Davis kind of at that big nose area with Guy and Barmore. So they did a good job on that Panthers. I know the Panthers' right side kind of got hurt in the first quarter, so that definitely played into the Patriots. Kind of like the Chargers game where they had some backup offensive linemen. So the Patriots got a little fortunate in terms of the offensive linemen for both teams. With the Panthers, Matt Paradis, I think his name was. He's a guard. Unfortunately, perhaps to him, he's out for the season, but he was a Panther, one of their best offensive line, and he got hurt during the game. So that was a big advantage of the Patriots in their defensive line. So, like I said, I can go many different ways here. But defensively, I'm going to give it to Christian Barmore and J.C. Jackson. And offensively, Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes, absolutely. And you're saying that your offensive player of the game is Ramondre Stevenson. Your defensive player of the game is who again?
J.C. Jackson and Christian Barmore, a double one.
And then special teams, we both have to go with Nick Folk.
Yeah, I mean, can't really go wrong with Nick Folk. I mean, he's just been steady every week, so that's not really much of a difference to Nick Folk. So.
Let's talk about one of our biggest takeaways in Week 9. Talk about the Buffalo Bills beating the Jaguars. It was a basketball score, 3-point victory.
You mean the other way around? You said the Bills beating the Jaguars. The other way?
Excuse me, I meant the other way around. The Jaguars beating the Bills 9-6. It was a basketball type score.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
And you said Isaiah's Jaguars helped.
Oh, I know. Yeah, what he was saying the week leading up to this game. The Jaguars watch out, and people are kind of giving a little bit of smack. So, Isaiah obviously after the game, deservedly so. I know that the Jags probably won't go far, but you only held this Buffalo offense, which is legit, to 6 points out of anything. You're doing pretty good. Josh Allen from the Bills side, 31-47 for 264 yards, but he threw 2 picks and no touchdowns. On the Jaguars side, it was headlined by Josh Allen, who was going against Josh Allen. So who won the battle of Josh Allen's? The Jacksonville Josh Allen. He had an interception, he had a forced fumble, and he had a sack, I think. He had 3 things that went well for him. So that was probably it was a 15-point spread in that game with Buffalo in a favorable spot there, but Jacksonville did a great job. Lawrence, who has had a hard time with turnovers in the last several weeks, he was turnover free in this game. He didn't throw for many yards. He only threw for 118. Didn't throw for a touchdown either. But you don't turn the ball over. An only thing that turned the ball over from Jacksonville was a Carlos Hyde fumble. But outside of that, you play very turnover-free football, and a lot of this game, you have a chance to win and keep it close, and they did that. So, yeah, I mean, we'll probably go back, 3 or 4 weeks later, be like, oh, Buffalo's legit. Hey, they beat the Jaguars. Remember that? Remember they lost to them? Look at the Titans. They lost to the Jets a couple weeks ago, and people were thinking the sky was falling. So, yes, I mean, it's nice to see the Patriots get some help there because I don't think many people at all expected that to happen. But that was a shocker. That was obviously the biggest shocker upset, not only of the weekend, but it could be the biggest one of the regular season. At least he'll be in the top 3.
It could be. So let's talk about the AFC East standing. So the Patriots are now a game back of first place, as both the Patriots and Bills are 5-win teams. The Bills have 3 losses, and the Patriots have 4 losses. And then the Jets and the Dolphins are both 2 wins, and the Jets have the tiebreaker. They're 2-6, and the Dolphins are 2-7. Obviously, the New York Jets had a loss to the Colts. The Dolphins, however, got a big win against the Houston Texans. And talk about the Patriots and the Bills. Could we see the Patriots leapfrog the Bills for first place?
Could. I mean, it could happen. We'll have to see. And this is kind of now this big stretch line. You get into November football, and that's kind of where you kind of stand out compared to the rest of the division. But it's really wide open. It's more wide open than we've kind of seen in years past. So, the Patriots do have a chance to leapfrog the Bills if they can. Can the Bills win this division? Sure. Can the Patriots win this division? Sure. I think that the Bills will probably win it. It'll come down to this, Loro. They'll face each other twice. If the Patriots win both, their chances of winning the division are much higher than not. If the Bills win both, the Bills win the division. If they split, it can come down to the final game, really, between both teams. So we'll see how that happens. What goes on there, but it should be a really good game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that division kind of lines up because Usually we've seen in years past, the Patriots kind of really being the team that's been running this division for so long. Obviously, the Bills won it last year for the first time. It feels like forever. So this year, the Bills are trying to reclaim their AFC East division, while the Patriots are trying to get it back to them on top. But both teams right now, in terms of the AFC East, the Bills and Patriots are for sure going to be the two teams going to be battling out. The Jets and the Miami, they have a long road ahead. I know Zach Wilson's probably going to come back. They might have Mike White or whatever back, but Miami and the Jets, they're rebuilding type teams. I know Miami. If they win in this Ravens game, who knows? They might have some false hope, I guess you can say. But you already have 7 wins at this point in the season. It's going to be hard to overcome. So, yeah, the Bills and the Patriots are the two teams that are going to be battling out for that division.
Yes, absolutely. So now, with that being said, folks, now let's talk about the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens are 6-2. The Steelers with a win last night. They had a big win over the Bears. They're 5-3. But speaking of the Steelers and Bears, talk about rich controversy in this game, and also talk about Cassius Marsh, former Patriot, who was called for taunting on the Steelers bench. That was a controversial call right there. And I wanted to touch on that just because from what I saw is that Tony Correnti, who was the referee in that game, he didn't even handle this correctly. And his crew did such a bad job with this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that taunting call on Cassius Marsh, and I understand I'm not a big Cassius Marsh guy because kind of the comments he made of how the Patriots don't run and being fun and stuff, so be it. He can go where he wants to go and stuff like that. But yeah, that game for sure. You could argue, well, Robert Quinn from the Bears side did jump offside a couple of times, key moments. But that call on Marsh, that taunting call, was a huge call because instead of it going to fourth down and being a punting situation, it went from a fourth down and then they got a field goal. So they got 3 points out of it. The final was a 2-point game. So, if they didn't get that field goal, things could have happened from there. Let's just say this. If I was a Steeler fan myself, I wouldn't be thrilled with the way that happened. I mean, yeah, you take the win, but you never want to see the referees, take advantage of these games now. Tony Correnti in the past years has never been a great ref in the past, so that's saying something. But still, I know Adam Thielen even today was saying that the league, it hasn't been able to, it's not like a no fun type of league like anymore. People just will push somebody like lightly and they'll call a flag, and it just doesn't feel like it's the same type of football we're accustomed to with a lot of these penalties. So yeah, it was ridiculous, and it was. I couldn't believe that they called that for sure. I mean, that everybody was outraged, and Bear fans for sure have the right. They definitely have the right for that.
Yes, and also Matt Nagy was not happy too, but it was a really good showing for the Bears as they fought their way to victory here. So you got the Steelers in second place, and then in third place you got the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. Tell you what, this AFC North division is going to come down to the wire as usual.
Yep, Baltimore's been playing great. They're 6-2. Pittsburgh is now 5-3. They did win yesterday. Cleveland's 5-4, and Cincy's 5-4. And Cincy obviously was playing great football. They still have a chance, but they've really been falling kind of since early in the season. They got absolutely smoked the last game against the Browns. That was kind of the game I talked about Loro on Loro and Friends last week in terms of that Browns Cleveland game. That Browns Cincy game was kind of at least an early kind of sign in terms of where teams kind of stand. And we'll get into the Odell Beckham Jr. as the certain rumors and the updates connecting with him, potentially the Patriots and stuff like that later in the program. But obviously, as you saw with this Browns team, OBJ was not on there, and Cleveland was able to have no problems with that either. So, that was obviously big. And
I think the Browns are a better team without Odell Beckham Jr. They could just throw the ball when they want with Jarvis Landry and Peoples-Jones and Hooper and Njoku. They're going to use Njoku more in the passing game. But I think the Cleveland Browns rely more on their run.
Yep, they have a great offensive line too. They actually extended, I think, his name Wyatt Taylor, guard, to a 3-4 year extension, so that's big for them. But yeah, they really control the running game well. But during the remainder of the program, as we talked about, a lot of the running backs for the Browns, Nick Chubb included the star running back. I know we'll get into more of this later, but I guess you could say breaking news from today, outside the Odell Beckham situation, but Nick Chubb tested positive for COVID-19. His status for Sunday's game is unclear as of right now. If he has 2 negative tests, I believe, on Friday or Saturday, there's a potential chance he does play, but I think Dearness Johnson, who had a big running day against the Broncos, I think is only right now the lone running back for the Browns as of right now. He did great against that team, so it'd still be a tough test. But you take away a guy like Nick Chubb. I mean, that's obviously a big break potentially for the Patriots. And obviously Nick Chubb went absolutely off in this game this past Sunday against the Bengals. So if he doesn't go, I mean that's a big break there because he's an absolute stud.
All right. Now that being said here, now we'll talk about let's go on to the AFC South here. So you got the Tennessee Titans in first. They got a big win against the Rams. The Colts are getting back to 500. I think they're going to be at 500 when they play the Jaguars. The Jaguars are in third, and the Texans are in last.
Yep. So this division's kind of like, you have the 2 teams that are kind of within, reach. Jacksonville and Houston on the other end. Yes, Jacksonville had that win, but I think Jacksonville should not celebrate for too long because they're still rebuilding. They're a young team. They're not going anywhere. Houston's not going anywhere. They obviously have to see what they want to do with a lot of their, well-known players. Guys like Brandon Cooks should be dealt at the end of the year. We'll see about Deshaun. Obviously, with Deshaun Watson, that's a certain situation as that won't go away until probably the remainder of the season. They shut him down, and so we'll see about that. Tennessee and Indy. So Tennessee is right now 7-2. I think that they're the best team in the AFC. And that showed on Sunday. When you take out a franchise player like Derrick Henry, and you go to a really hostile environment, a really good place in the Rams, which has one of the best stout defenses in football, one of the best defensive players, one of the best players in football, and you put up that amount of points, you got to get a lot of praise for that. They put up 28 points, so almost up to 30 points in that defense, which has been great all season. And they forced some turnovers on a good quarterback like Matt Stafford. So big win there for the Titans. And yeah, I mean this Indy team I think is going to be good. The only thing I worry about this Indy team is their consistency. They got a good offensive line, but we got to see how they kind of do the remainder of the way. They're 4-5 though. It's not like they're not out of it. They're so within reach, and we'll see how that turns out to be. But right now, Tennessee is going to win that division, I think.
All right, now we'll talk about the AFC West. I mean, 3 teams are tied for first place. In the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs and the Broncos, all of them are tied for first place, to be honest with you. This is a very tough division.
Yeah, really tough. Chargers had a big one this past week against Eagles. The Raiders, they obviously had a lot of off-the-field problems with some of their key players. And they lost the Giants. I think that was the Giants haven't been playing great football, but that was low-key a big one for them because that kind of gave them some hope as anything for the wild card. I still don't think it's going to be in the works for them, but it gives them at least a little bit of life. The Chiefs still, I know they won last week. That's kind of the same week as the Giants. Besides that Mahomes throw at the end of that game, they just look like they're out of sync, kind of like they've been for the last several weeks. I don't know what exactly it is. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy are very good coaches, but Packers did a great job. You only win by this 13-6, 13-7 type of game against a backup quarterback. I mean, heck, if Aaron Rodgers was out there, the Chiefs aren't winning that game. The Chiefs, they had a lot of stalled drives, and I feel like Aaron Rodgers and that team would have definitely gave them more than what Jordan Love did. Let alone, I mean, yes, Jordan Love, I think, could be a really good team. Could help the team a lot down the road, but he's obviously not the answer, at least early on, I think, in the season. It's a tall task, I guess you can say, really, for Jordan Love. And then Denver, I think I kind of wrote off a bit. I was kind of saying, I still think that it's going to be tough for them to get in just because there's so many other good teams in that division that I like more than them. But Dallas was 6-1, and they got Dak back. They had a lot of their kind of big time guys, and Denver really put it to them. So I got to give them credit too. So they're 5-4. So this is going to be a really interesting division right here. Obviously you're usually accustomed to seeing kind of the Chiefs being that leader, kind of with that team that they have in their firepower. But this one's for sure up for grabs, and I'll be curious to kind of see who is able to come out on top.
Yeah, this division's definitely up for grabs. I think we're going to find out on Sunday night who's going to be out on top. I mean, we're going to see the Chiefs and the Raiders go head-to-head. The Chargers have been playing really good football. Everybody thought that Denver would be one of the worst teams in the NFL just because they don't have a quarterback, but I think Teddy Bridgewater has made them a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, he's a game manager, so I mean, he'll give you, some big games during the season, but he'll obviously have his flaws too. He'll have some mediocre type of, not terribly so great type of games, but he'll give, he's not going to cost you much per se if you're kind of looking for a quarterback, and I don't think he'd be like a long-term answer. But look at it like a team that's in need, right? Of a team like the Saints, where he's kind of been, familiar with. A team like Denver, who I think could give him some money this offseason. But I do think they might be in the Rodgers sweepstakes by the end of the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if they move on. Yeah, I mean, he's a decent quarterback, Teddy is. Not saying he's the end-all be-all, but he definitely can be smart when he can be smart, and he's made obviously his mistakes here and there though. But I think that this Teddy Bridgewater that was shown on Sunday has can prove that he still has it in him at times. So.
All right. Now that being said here, now we'll move on to the NFC side. You got the Cowboys in first place, and the Eagles are in second. The Giants are in third, and then the Washington football team's in last. But I'll tell you what, folks, the Cowboys are definitely the best team in the NFC still. They just had one bad game. But I think that the Cowboys are going to find a way to get another win here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Cowboys losing. Denver is not a great team. I mean, that's a team that they should have won at home. It's not as worse as you're having like the Bills and the Jaguars per se, but the Giants won. They're 3-6. The Eagles lost, but they made it. They lost in a close one. Washington, of course, has been disappointed on all this year. Dallas for sure is not going to lose this division. I just can't see it. They would literally have to fall on its face by now and the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yes, they will. You're absolutely right. So, anyways, now we'll talk about the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers are 7-2. The Vikings are 3-5. The Bears are 3-6. And I think the Bears are just looking lost right now. I think this is pretty much one of their worst seasons that I've ever seen since Lovie Smith's final year. And then the Lions are 0-8.
Yep, Lions just can't seem to find a way to get a win at all. They're rebuilding regardless, but it'll be nice to see the Lions at least get one, get something at least feel good about. The Bears had a tough one yesterday. Like you said, Loro, hasn't been a great year for Chicago, but they do have a quarterback. I think Justin Fields, what he showed yesterday has shown flashes. I mean, if he could do it more consistently, he will be their future. But I think from yesterday, he had to come back from a couple deficits in this game, and he proved that he has talent. He has really good talent on the run. Minnesota's 3-5. They had a chance last week. They were 3-4, and they could have made it to 500. They blew, I think, 2 15-point leads in that game, so that's a tough one. I think Mike Zimmer could be on the hot seat by the end of the season. It just seems like there's always kind of something with that Vikings team where you kind of like, they're kind of in the middle per se, but they're always like, it's Minnesota sports. They kind of will just give you that hope and disappoint you kind of at the end. So, but Green Bay is the favorite. I mean, that's if you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, it's kind of like the Cowboys situation. I mean, they kept that offense from Chiefs. I know the Chiefs offense has been struggling, but you go in that Arrowhead Stadium with a loud crowd and you only held them 13 points. They're not scared of anybody. They're 5-1 in the conference, 2-0 in the division. Give me the Packers to win that division.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're on to the NFC South. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6-2. The New Orleans Saints are 5-3. The Falcons are 4-4. The Panthers are 4-5.
Yep. So the Bucs are on the bye. They come off. They're going to be starting their second half against Washington. I think the Bucs will win. They always seem, Brady in the second half. They always seem to kind of get things going. The Saints had a tough one. They played hard. They came back a little too late. They almost pulled out against Atlanta. The Falcons are not out. They are not out of this. And I think a lot of people are like, Atlanta, really? They're 500. Yes, they're 2-4 in the conference. They're 1-2 in the division, but going to the Superdome and winning a type of game like that's a good win. They've shown signs where they could be decent this year. And the Patriots play them after this weekend. I wouldn't rule that game out in terms of the Patriots, kind of having a stinker. I think the Patriots should win that game. I still have a lot of self-doubts about Atlanta in terms of their coaching staff and a lot of their players on defense. And if no Calvin Ridley, you really can kind of shade the box and worry about Kyle Pitts because, Matt Ryan's not obviously the same guy he used to be. I'm not really high on their running game. It'd be kind of like maybe like the Carolina game per se. You have decent type of receivers here and there, but if you play, very low turnover type of game on a short week, you should be able to win that game. But they're 4-4, so they've been playing hard. And then Carolina, Darnold obviously hasn't been the answer there. It's unfortunate because I thought he would be under a new head coach Joe Brady. He hasn't been the answer there, as we've seen on Sunday. You got McCaffrey. You got McCaffrey back, so that could help them. He'll definitely get much better, I think. But they're facing a really tough division, and I do think that it's not going to be in the cards for them at all. So this definitely is going to probably go to the Bucs if I had to pick. But the Bucs lost their first matchup against New Orleans in the first game. And we'll have to see what happens there. But I think as of right now, the Bucs are probably going to win it.
Yeah, the Bucs are definitely looking like they're the favorites to win the NFC South. But now on to the NFC West. You got the Arizona Cardinals. They're in first place. They are playing good football, but as Isaiah said, the Niners should have not lost to a shorthanded Cardinals team without DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. They lost to Colt McCoy. I think Colt McCoy is a good backup. He knows Cliff Kingsbury's system here. So that's why the Cardinals are playing really good football. Then the Rams are 7-2. The Seahawks are 3-5, but I have a really good feeling that Russell Wilson's going to lead them to a magical run. A magical, but I could say magical run to the playoffs. And I think the Seahawks will find a way to still somehow get in with Russell Wilson back. And then the Niners, they're 3-5. They're 0-3 in the division. They got another big divisional test on Monday night against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, so this division, it's still up for grabs. Arizona and the Rams specifically. I think Seattle can make a chance for the wild card. I don't think that they will make a run up the division just because the Rams and the Cardinals each have more than 5 wins max. The Seahawks only have 3 wins, but you got a guy back like Russell Wilson that should elevate your team drastically offensively. Defensively, I think they're still kind of inconsistent. But if they start winning a couple games here down the stretch, things could definitely change. I don't know about the Niners. They're 3-5. This is really a must win for them. They can't afford to go 3-6, kind of, and then from there kind of play catch up. You go to 4-5, okay, you have some hope. But you really got to start stacking wins together. And the fact that they haven't won yet at home, where they've been great for the past couple of seasons, is very concerning. And like you said, losing to a Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins team less Arizona Cardinals, that's really could have been a game where you could have, stole. And they really bullied you. Kind of their JV team kind of bullied that Niners team. So, I don't really know who's going to win the division as of right now. Laura, you're going to obviously, I think you're going to kind of have to wait for that. But it should be a really fun division. It's just one of my fun divisions to kind of look out for here.
Yeah, so now with that being said here, now we'll talk about some let's now dive into the Patriots and Browns preview, but before that, is Odell Beckham Jr. going to be a New England Patriot? What do you think?
Well, Laura, before you ask that, we should tell the audience in terms of exactly how it went down. So specifically what happened was Odell Beckham Jr. and his time in Cleveland, kind of the Baker Mayfield per se. Essentially last weekend, there's reports out there from his father that he was getting frustrated that his son wasn't getting the targets. Some games where he was wide open in games. There's guys like LeBron James that went to Twitter and showed some frustration about freeing Odell, this and that. And then you start to get some national media saying, maybe he might get released. We'll see what happens. But obviously obviously they asked Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield said, we'll see if we can work it out. I can even change my ways, which I thought was really interesting. And then kind of 1 or 2 days later, there started to become more reports out there of Odell Beckham Jr. going to get released from the team. And it went down a couple days ago. And, today was the deadline date if he could be claimed from any type of team. And he went unclaimed, which means that he can go to free agency. So as of today at 4 p.m., he was a free agent. He is the first time in his career he's a free agent. And some teams that were linked to Odell Beckham Jr. I don't have any sources per se, but the teams, according to Jeff Schultz, there's a lot of mixed tweets out there today, out there for a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. But I think the main teams that should be linked to him are New England Patriots. I do think that we need to have a true number one. I do think the locker room situation will be kind of interesting. We'll have to see how things would work out. But he would, of course, he's not the same Odell we used to be, but he would definitely give us kind of an outside and a big help to upgrade that receiving room. So I could see the Patriots being interested. I could see the Packers, and I think the Packers are kind of his number one choice right now. Davante Adams is always kind of one of that true number two kind of against him. But the biggest thing about Odell is he wants to get a ring and he wants to go to contender. So if he wants to be a number one, he can go to a team like the Saints. And the Saints, I think, are going to be interesting, especially, too, where he was from LSU, so he knows kind of familiarity there. There've been some wild card teams kind of like the Seahawks and stuff, but I don't like – they already have DK Metcalf. They have Tyler Lockett. I don't think that he'll get all the targets there. I think it's going to be kind of like a Brown situation if he goes there because they just have so many other good playmakers there. So I think as of right now, we probably could get a decision within the next 1 to 2 days. Maybe we could do a breaking news type of thing on here if you want to, in terms of if Odell turns out to be a Patriot, we can kind of recap that. But if you have to ask me, will the Patriots sign Odell? My best guess is probably no. I know there's a lot of people that I'm false to, but I think Bill kind of likes the team that they have now. Let me just say this. If Odell does not get signed if he goes signed somewhere else, I think the Patriots' best chance to get him is by tomorrow. I think if they don't get him by tomorrow, I think that he's going to be going somewhere else. I don't think that they're because obviously you have to get their game plan in for Cleveland coming up, and we'll talk about Cleveland.
If you got Jacoby Myers, Jacoby Myers has been really, really good for the Patriots.
Right, but the biggest thing too, Loro, is and one thing that I did read a podcast on is, as much as you like Jacoby Myers, if you got a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., that frees up a lot more space for Jacoby Myers across the middle of the field because this game against the Panthers is kind of a letdown game for him. You put a guy like Stephon Gilmore shutdown corner, when a guy like OBJ. then you start to kind of have different type of guys on different guys. You get chances like Jacoby, Nelson Aguilar, chances kind of, it's just another look. Odell's definitely a guy that can definitely give the team a little more looks, and the tight ends. They open up more in the tight end game too. So, I would definitely kind of like the fit there. They've obviously gambled too with guys like Antonio Brown. I know that they've gambled with guys like Josh Gordon. So this would obviously not be it would be kind of a similar situation, I guess, in a way. But yeah, I mean, OBJ, the talks definitely should definitely be on the lookout for tomorrow and then Thursday. I think that it would not surprise me. I'll give you a hot take. It'll come down to 3 teams: the Patriots, the Saints, and the Packers. Those are my 3 teams. By tomorrow or Thursday, people, you've heard it first. One of those teams Odell will be going to by tomorrow or Thursday.
All right. Now we'll talk about the Patriots-Browns. So, anyways, when you talk about the Patriots and Browns game for tomorrow here, so here's what my thoughts are. I think the Patriots are going to win this game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I just think that – but just don't be surprised if Cleveland wins. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland wins. I mean, Cleveland's been playing well. But I think the Patriots will probably find a way to win this game. I think Bill Belichick knows the Cleveland Browns schemes. Obviously, he used to coach there. And I think that the Patriots will get a win. And some of my keys to the game is I think that you got to get off to a better start in the first quarter. Put up points in the first quarter, score in the opening drive for the Patriots. Defense, just continue to do your job.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done, though. But in the last 5 games, they scored 40 points twice. And then in between those 2 40-point games, they've averaged less than 20 points. I think the Patriots held them to between 20 and 23 points. I think the Patriots can win 27-23. I think that the Patriots can take advantage of some of that COVID news from Nick Chubb being out. It will be a big game. It would have to be a big game from Baker Mayfield, which he has potentially the possible of doing. I'm not saying he can't, but they rely through a guy like Nick Chubb. If Kareem Hunt's out, that's another thing too. So we got to see how things will go out. Austin Hooper, that's a guy I look out for. They have some pretty good tight ends. They kind of use them a lot at once. And then Njoku and Harrison Bryant, they got good offensive linemen. Their defense is very stout. Last time the Patriots faced the Browns was in October, rainy game at Gillette Stadium. The Patriots won that game. Julian Edelman had 2 touchdowns on that game, but the Browns turned the ball over a couple times, and the Patriots, if they can, I know it's a rainy game too, so I mean the ball's a little bit wet, but if you get some turnovers in this game, you play very low turnover-free football, I think the Patriots could win this game. Now, I think this could be a very even type of game. I don't see it being like, okay, that's a clear team of who's going to win. It's going to be a very interesting game. Kind of the last couple of weeks, we kind of had, okay, I think that this team will win so-and-so. I just feel like they're playing better. But these 2 teams are kind of really even as things stand right now. Biggest thing is the third down efficiencies. The Patriots are actually 5th in the league. The Browns are 2nd in sacks. So the Patriots' offensive line is going to be tested. The Patriots actually lead in interceptions right now. But the Browns only have 5 interceptions on the season. Time possession is very close. The Browns are actually leading that in 5th. The Patriots are 10th in that. Rushing yards per game. This is the biggest thing. If those guys are out, Nick Chubb and a bunch of guys, they are 2nd rushing yards per game. Passing yards per game, they're caught. The Browns are 26. Like I said, I'm not too high big time on their passing game. It feels like it should scare you a lot more than it can be. But I think that if the Patriots' defensive line can kind of do what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, I really like their chances. but it's gonna be a really tight one. They're really going to have to play hard and they can't make a lot of turnover in this one and get behind early, because I think that they won't win this game. My score prediction for both teams, I want the Patriots to win, so if the Patriots win, give me the Patriots 27-20. And if the Browns win, I think it'll be like a 23-17 type of game.
Yes, absolutely. So, anyways, did you talk about your keys to the game for the Patriots?
I kind of there's a couple things. My keys to the game, kind of a lot what you said. Start strong. They've had some slow starts. You don't want to get slow against this team that you're facing. Try to create some turnovers. Force Baker to throw the ball in the pocket. He does get a little hesitant in the pocket. Don't let him go outside the pocket. I mean, you can here and there, but don't let him extend plays like crazy. Don't let him get into a rhythm. He can definitely get rattled early on in games. So, I mean, let me look at the game that he had against New England last time. His stats from, I think, 2019, 27-13 was the score. It was in a rain type of game. Baker threw for 200 yards. He threw 20-31 for 194. His touchdown and interception. So, yeah, I mean, I think that he'll probably throw like over under between 200 and 250 yards. I think Mac will throw between 150 and 200 yards. I think he'll throw 2 touchdowns and a pick. And then I think the running game, I think Damien Harris will get another touchdown in this game. I think Nelson Aguilar will have maybe 2 touchdowns. I think Nelson Aguilar can have a big game in this one. I don't know why. I think Jacoby Myers should have one. So watch out for those 2 guys. I think Jacoby Myers will have a bounce back game. He didn't have a great game last week, so I think I'll have bounce back. So this should be a really fun game. If things go to plan, but they out execute. If they don't execute on this game, they will lose. They will lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyways, with that being said, everyone, we're about to close the show out for final thoughts. So, what are your final thoughts on the show here, Ben?
Yeah, well, like always, thanks for having me, and looking forward to starting our baseball show tomorrow. Can't wait to see the NFL games. We didn't really talk about the other games coming up this weekend, but I'll kind of go through some. We got the Ravens Dolphins Thursday night. I think that the Ravens probably get that. I'll do like a quick game pick for you. We don't have to go through yours per se, unless you really want to, but we'll try to finish early as possible. Falcons Cowboys. I'm going to go with Dallas. Saints Titans. I'm going to go with the Saints. Colts Jags. I'm going to go with the Colts. Bills Jets. I think the Bills respond. Lions Steelers. I'm going to go with the Steelers. Bucks football. Washington football team. I'm going to go with the Bucks. Vikings Chargers. I'm going to go with the Chargers here. Eagles Broncos. I'm going to go Eagles. I'm going to go upset. This could be the game of the week. Actually, the games, the later half of Sunday and then Monday night could be interesting. You got Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers potentially, and then you got Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr. The Raiders-Chiefs games are usually really good. That's a Sunday night game. So I'm going to go Packers beating the Seahawks. Russ has a big game though. And then Chiefs Raiders. I'm going to go Raiders. I'm going to go Raiders in this one. I think the Chiefs are going to fall up short in this game. And then the Rams and the Niners, I'm going to go Rams.
All right. So, folks, with that being said, everyone.
But in terms of my closing thoughts, like always, thanks for having me. And, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll obviously talk more tomorrow. And, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about baseball tomorrow, so there's going to be a lot to talk about. We're going to be predicting which top free agents are going to go. So I have mine, and also we could talk about some of the wish lists that we have for both the Dodgers and Red Sox when it comes to free agency. Like an example is if the Dodgers don't bring Chris Taylor back, they can bring back Charlie Culberson. That's an example right there. The Red Sox, here's an example. You could predict if Erod will be back. We're going to have to – I can't wait to hear your thoughts on if the Red Sox will bring back Eduardo Rodriguez.
I'll definitely do my wish list for sure before the show tomorrow, so it should be good.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about teams. We'll talk about the universal DH coming to the major leagues, to the NL, which I think that's going to be likely in the new CBA coming up. And I also think that we'll talk about which teams are going to be active this offseason. Like, I could give the audience this a little early preview. Expect the Angels and the Dodgers, and throw in another team you think is going to be active this offseason.
Yankees.
Oh, the Yankees. I mean, they got Cole. Was that?
Sadly. But
you said the Yankees sadly? Or the Rays are not going to be that active, but they find a ways to.
I think the Red Sox will be active too.
Yeah, I think they probably will. And the Blue Jays have high expectations.
Mariners. Watch out for the Mariners to be a wild card team in this offseason.
And also we'll talk about expanded playoffs, which I think will probably happen. We'll probably see 10 teams from 10 to 14 teams in this new playoff format. So for Ben and Loro, this is it for Loro and Friends. More baseball talk tomorrow. First off-season show tomorrow.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me tonight.